Have you ever walked away from a conversation and felt drained? Not because it was difficult, but because it didn't deserve you in the first place. There's a kind of intelligence that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to argue, impress, or be the loudest voice in the room. It shows up in how you protect your peace, in what you choose to ignore, and in the quiet strength of self-restraint. The Stoics understood this well. True wisdom is not about how much you know, but about how little you let disturb your inner world. In a world that rewards reaction and noise, it's easy to forget that real power lies in knowing what not to engage with. Not every opinion requires your rebuttal. Not every invitation deserves your presence. And not every relationship earns the right to your time, your mind, or your heart. This isn't a list of clever tips. It's a guide to living with intention. A reminder that intelligence isn't only about insight. It's about boundaries, discernment, and the courage to choose stillness over struggle. So if you're ready to live with more clarity, to stop handing your energy to what doesn't serve you, and to carry yourself with quiet, grounded strength, stay with me. Take a breath. Hit subscribe if this speaks to you. And let's explore the 10 things intelligent people avoid, and why choosing less may just give you more than you ever expected. Number 1. They avoid pointless arguments. Intelligent people don't engage in pointless arguments, not because they're timid or indifferent, but because they've learned, often through hard-earned experience, that most arguments are rarely about truth. They're about pride. At some point you realize that the person raising their voice across the room isn't seeking understanding, they're seeking victory. And when you respond, you're not just giving them your time. You're handing over your focus, your peace of mind, and your emotional balance to someone who was never open to reason in the first place. Stoic philosophy slices through this illusion with surgical clarity. You don't have to show up to every fight you're invited to. Choosing not to engage isn't surrender. It's strategy. It's the difference between being pulled into someone else's chaos and preserving your inner calm. I once worked with a man named Eric who thrived on confrontation. Every meeting turned into a performance. Even the simplest ideas triggered pushback. At first, I thought I had to respond, to prove I was right, to defend my credibility. But the more I argued, the more drained I became. Eventually, I paused. I stopped responding to every jab. I let him have the last word, not because I conceded, but because I realized there was no value in continuing. And to my surprise, something shifted. Without a reaction, his need for control began to collapse. He wasn't feeding off conflict anymore, because I'd stopped feeding it. The truth is, people who argue endlessly often feel powerless deep down. They confuse dominance with respect. But intelligent people, especially those who understand the Stoic way, know that control isn't about silencing others. It's about mastering yourself. Refusing to argue doesn't mean you're avoiding discomfort. It means you've calculated the emotional cost and decided your energy is better spent elsewhere. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's the quiet strength Stoicism teaches. The power to stay still while the world provokes you, and the discipline to choose peace, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Number 2. They avoid over-explaining themselves. There's a quiet kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly feeling the need to explain yourself. Why you made that decision, why you said no, why your life doesn't look the way others think it should. Many people fall into this habit without noticing, driven by a subtle but powerful fear. The fear of being misunderstood, judged, or rejected. But intelligent people, especially those shaped by Stoic thinking, learn to resist this impulse. They know that over-explaining doesn't create clarity. It creates openings for others to question, reshape, or challenge choices that were never theirs to understand in the first place. This habit often stems from a hidden hunger for external validation. When you don't fully own your decisions internally, you unconsciously seek permission for them from the outside world. But as the Stoics remind us, that's a dangerous game. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish." That's the heart of it. The goal is not to be seen as right. It's to be right with yourself. No matter how carefully you explain your intentions, someone will always misunderstand, twist your words, or judge your journey through their own narrow lens. You can't live freely if you're always trying to manage the stories others tell about you. Intelligent people understand this. They trade constant justification for quiet confidence. They let their decisions speak, not because they owe no one an answer, but because they know that some answers lose their meaning when spoken too often. They recognize that mystery is not weakness, it's power. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Because once you stop explaining everything, you begin reclaiming something even more important: your authority, your presence, and your peace. In a noisy world obsessed with validation, restraint becomes a rare and commanding force, and that, according to Stoicism, is a form of strength no one can take from you. Number 3, they avoid being the loudest in the room. There's a quiet kind of wisdom in not needing to fill every silence. Some people speak as if every pause is a threat, rushing to dominate the conversation, outshout the crowd, and assert their voice in every corner of the room. At first glance, it looks like confidence, even leadership. But if you look closer, you'll often find the opposite. The need to always be heard doesn't signal strength. It often reveals insecurity. Intelligent people, especially those guided by Stoic principles, understand this well. They've learned that true presence isn't about volume, it's about gravity. The most respected person in the room is rarely the one who talks the most. It's the one who listens deeply, observes quietly, and speaks with calm precision only when necessary. Picture a meeting where one person, let's call him Mark, dominates every discussion. His voice is everywhere, turning ideas into monologues and feedback into performances. Across the table, another colleague, quiet but alert, says little. But when they do speak, the room falls silent, not out of fear, but out of respect. Their words land, not because they're loud, but because they're grounded. That isn't passive behavior, it's strategic, it's mastery. From a psychological standpoint, the urge to control a conversation often comes from a fragile ego. Talking non-stop becomes a way to drown out self-doubt. But Stoicism teaches a different path. If you are clear in your thinking, you don't need to be loud. If you are secure in your values, you don't need to prove anything. A Stoic doesn't chase attention, they attract it. Not through noise, but through stillness. Not through performance, but through presence. Speaking less isn't weakness, it's restraint. It's knowing that sometimes silence says more than sound ever could. When you've mastered yourself, you stop trying to impress the room, and in doing so, you become the one they can't ignore. Number 4, they avoid people who drain their energy. There's a kind of fatigue that doesn't settle in your muscles. It settles in your spirit. It doesn't come from overworking or missing sleep. It comes from people, not the loud or aggressive ones, but the ones who quietly drain you through guilt, negativity, or by making every moment orbit around themselves. Intelligent people learn to notice this kind of drain early. They understand that their energy is not a free-for-all, it's a resource. And at some point, they begin to guard it as something sacred, because it is. Take Julia, for example, a kind, capable woman in her 50s who had always been the emotional anchor in her family. Her younger sister, Diane, called almost daily, not to share joy, but to complain about work, her ex-husband, the weather, the neighbor's cat. Julia listened. She offered comfort, advice, even financial help when needed, but it was never enough. The complaints continued, and the emotional weight grew heavier. When Julia gently set boundaries, asking for fewer calls, requesting more positive conversations, Diane lashed out, calling her cold, selfish, even disloyal. That's when something shifted. Julia had recently discovered Stoic philosophy, and one passage from Marcus Aurelius struck her deeply. You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. It hit her. She didn't need to fix Diane. She didn't need to offer herself as a sacrifice to prove her love. What she needed was peace and the courage to protect it. So Julia made a decision, not dramatic, but firm. She created space. She no longer picked up every call. She responded on her own terms. And most importantly, she released the guilt. Because love isn't measured by how much of yourself you give away. It's measured by how much respect you both bring to the relationship. That's the Stoic way. Intelligent people know you can love someone and still say no. You can care deeply and still protect your boundaries. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. And clarity is power. Number 5, they avoid boasting. There's a subtle but powerful difference between confidence and compensation, and intelligent people know exactly where that line is. They've seen through the illusion that loudness equals strength. In fact, they've learned that those who constantly broadcast their achievements, wealth, or intellect are often not displaying confidence. They're compensating for the quiet doubt within. Boasting, more often than not, is insecurity wearing the mask of pride. The Stoics understood this truth long before modern psychology gave it a label. To them, real strength doesn't need to shout. It moves with calm, with purpose, and most of all, with restraint. A truly capable person lets their actions speak, not because they lack stories to tell, but because they understand that real substance never begs for attention. Take Martin, a seasoned strategist in his early 60s. He had built a quietly successful life, not filled with flashy displays, but with integrity, impact, and presence. In a boardroom of self-promoters and title-droppers, Martin didn't push his resume. He didn't talk over people or parade his past. He asked questions, he listened, and when he did speak, his words were precise, considered, and grounded. While others chased approval, Martin earned trust, not through noise, but through quiet authority. This is what sets intelligent people apart. They've been through enough failure, reflection, humility to no longer crave applause. They know that boasting often creates distance. It forces comparison, signaling to others that they are somehow less. Humility, on the other hand, invites connection. It levels the field. It makes others feel safe to be seen too. Stoicism is not about shrinking yourself. It's about mastering the urge to perform. When your life aligns with your principles, you don't need to convince anyone. Your actions become your introduction. Your silence becomes your strength. And that, in a world full of performers, is the kind of presence no spotlight can outshine. Number 6, they avoid complaining without action. Complaining without action is one of the quietest forms of self-sabotage. It feels like movement, like something's being addressed, but in truth, it only deepens the feeling of helplessness. Many fall into this cycle unknowingly. They talk about what's wrong, how unfair life is, how others have failed them. And yet, day after day, nothing changes. The words end with the complaint. No plan, no pivot. Just the same loop. Frustration, expression, repeat. Intelligent people learn early to break this cycle, not because they suppress their emotions, but because they understand that energy is finite, and complaints consume it quickly. Psychologically, complaining often stems from a valid human need, the desire to be seen, to be heard in our pain. But if it ends there, if no action follows, it becomes a crutch, soothing to the ego, but damaging to the will. This is where Stoicism draws a clear line. Feel the discomfort, yes, but then ask the question that separates noise from clarity. Is this within my control? If the answer is no, the complaint ends there. It's acknowledged, accepted, and released. If the answer is yes, a second question follows naturally. What can I do about it? This is the turning point. This is where the complaint becomes a cue for transformation. Stoics don't deny emotion, they examine it. They respond, not with endless commentary, but with considered action. Complaining is seen not as weakness, but as a signal, a signpost pointing to imbalance. But once it's pointed out, the responsibility shifts. You either act or you let go. Intelligent people live by this principle. They don't indulge in drama, and they don't rehearse pain. They move, they decide, they release. That's what gives their presence weight. Not their ability to speak about what's wrong, but their quiet resolve to do something about it. Number 7. They avoid oversharing their plans. There's a quiet danger in revealing your goals too soon. At first it feels harmless, even exciting, to announce that new project, career shift, or life change. You share it with friends, maybe post about it online. But what starts as enthusiasm can quickly invite pressure, doubt, and unsolicited opinions. Suddenly, your focus isn't just on building the thing, it's on managing the expectations that now surround it. Intelligent people understand this trap. They've learned that oversharing doesn't create accountability. It creates interference, and interference fractures clarity. Many people overshare not out of strategy, but out of insecurity. They speak their ambitions aloud, hoping for validation, for applause, for that early dopamine hit of being seen. But Stoic wisdom teaches us to be cautious with applause, especially before the work is done. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, don't waste what's left of your life in guessing what others do and say. It distracts you from your own purpose. When you announce your goals prematurely and receive praise, your mind registers it as progress, even if nothing's been built yet. That false sense of accomplishment can reduce urgency. You feel satisfied before you've earned it. You talk more, but act less. And when inevitable setbacks arrive, the same people who once clapped begin asking questions you're not ready to answer. That's why the Stoics and the intelligent choose to build in silence, not because they fear judgment, but because they respect the process. They understand that true growth requires space, not spectacle. When you work without seeking attention, your momentum becomes internal. Your motivation is yours alone, and your results, when they do emerge, speak with a power no premature announcement ever could. So intelligent people keep their plans close, not out of secrecy, but out of self-mastery, because real change doesn't need an audience. It needs discipline, solitude, and the kind of patience that builds something unshakable. That's Stoicism in motion, quiet, focused, and undeniable. Number 8. they avoid people who don't respect boundaries. There's a kind of harm that doesn't leave visible scars, but it wears you down all the same. It happens slowly, subtly, through every ignored no, every guilt-laced request, every so-called joke that crosses the line you've clearly drawn. And over time, it sends a very clear message. Your comfort, your values, your space, they don't matter here. Intelligent people don't allow that message to linger. They know that the people you surround yourself with influence more than your schedule. They shape your mindset, your emotional well-being, your growth. And when someone repeatedly crosses a line, even with a smile, even under the disguise of affection, it's not just rude. It's revealing. It tells you exactly what kind of relationship you're in. Think of someone who treats your boundaries like suggestions. They pressure you into plans you've declined, show up uninvited, keep making remarks you've asked them to stop. At first, it might seem harmless, but persistent disregard for boundaries isn't forgetfulness. It's a quiet test. How much of yourself are you willing to give away before you push back, or worse, give up? This is where Stoicism brings piercing clarity. Seneca once advised us to spend time only with those who make us better, those who support our virtue, not test our limits. Psychologically, those who ignore boundaries are often seeking control, whether consciously or not. They want to bend the world, and you, around their comfort. But intelligent people, grounded in self-respect, don't beg for understanding. They don't argue with patterns. They simply exit. Quietly, firmly, without drama or regret. Because protecting your energy, your time and your dignity is not selfish. It's wise. When someone shows you who they are through repeated disrespect, intelligent people don't try to change them. They walk away, and in doing so, they keep the one thing Stoicism teaches us to guard above all else: inner peace. Number 9, they avoid always needing to be right. The need to always be right often comes from a deeper place, the desire to be respected, admired, or in control. But intelligent people recognize the cost of this compulsion. Winning the argument may feel satisfying in the moment, but it rarely builds anything lasting. It bruises egos, strains relationships, and creates distance where there could have been connection. Truly wise individuals choose a different path. They know that being right isn't always the most important thing in the room. Sometimes choosing to listen, to pause, or to let others hold their beliefs without correction is the higher form of strength, because the real victory isn't in proving someone wrong, it's in preserving your peace and your principles. A powerful example of this comes from Fred Rogers, known affectionately as Mr. Rogers. Behind the gentle voice and signature sweaters was a man of deep conviction and formidable intellect. He could have out-argued almost anyone in a debate, but what made him unforgettable wasn't his sharpness, it was his restraint. In interviews, even when confronted by skepticism or dismissal, Rogers didn't argue. He listened. He responded with grace. He never used truth as a sword, only as a bridge. In 1969, Rogers testified before the U.S. Senate to defend funding for public television. The senator presiding, John Pastore, was initially cold, impatient, but instead of countering with data or defensiveness, Rogers spoke softly. He recited lyrics from one of his songs. He explained not just what his show did, but what it meant to children. And by the end, the senator, visibly moved, simply said, "Looks like you just earned the $20 million, Ace." That moment wasn't won through cleverness. It was won through calm, clarity, and composure. That's Stoicism in action. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, You always retain the option of having no opinion. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're indifferent. It means you're wise enough to avoid unnecessary conflict. Intelligent people know that ego wants to win, but wisdom wants peace. And in the end, silence often speaks the loudest. Number 10. They avoid emotional reactivity. Emotional reactivity is one of the quickest ways to lose control, not just of a situation, but of yourself. When you react from anger, frustration, or defensiveness, you're not leading with clarity. You're surrendering your power to the very thing that triggered you. Intelligent people learn this early. Not every provocation deserves a response, and not every emotion deserves to be acted on. Instead of reacting, they pause. That stillness, the brief space between stimulus and response, is where mastery begins. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about not letting your emotions hijack your behavior. There's a difference. Emotions are natural, even necessary. But when you allow them to steer the wheel, you stop thinking clearly. You say things you regret. You escalate problems that could have been quietly resolved. And the damage, once done, is hard to take back. This is why intelligent people place such high value on composure. They don't let someone else's chaos become their own. From a psychological lens, emotional reactivity is often a symptom of inner instability. When you haven't done the internal work, when your sense of self isn't steady, even small challenges can feel like threats. Your body tenses, your mind narrows, and your instinct is to defend, not discern. But Stoicism offers a wiser path. It teaches that true strength isn't about domination, it's about discipline. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." In other words, your suffering often comes not from the event, but from how you respond to it. The Stoic mind chooses to pause, to reflect, and then to act, not out of emotion, but out of intention, not from fear, but from presence. This is what separates the reactive from the wise. So here's the truth. Intelligence isn't found in how loudly you speak or how many arguments you win. It's in what you choose to walk away from, the noise, the ego traps, the emotional spirals, that quiet restraint. That's where the real power lives. Real wisdom isn't loud. It's the quiet strength of walking away, staying calm, and guarding your peace like it matters, because it does. If this spoke to you, comment, walk in calm, subscribe for more, and stay tuned. Your next breakthrough might be just one video away.